This is a Flying Cow production.
Book 1, Water. Book 2, Earth. Book 3, Fire. Long ago, Nickelodeon introduced a series called Avatar: The Last Airbender. It combined great anime-style animation, strong storytelling, heart, and humor. It was great, and everyone that saw it loved it. Until one day, a terrible movie came out which everyone hated. But my co-host Lauren Collins knows none of this because he's never seen the show. And that's why we are watching every episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I believe this could be Lauren's new favorite show. Or at least top 20.
Well, hello, and welcome back to Comets and Cabbages here on The Flying Cow. I, of course, am your host, The Flying Cow, Clay Johnson himself, and I apparently have a clogged throat, excuse me. And I am just Swamp Vision.
Well, my name's Amanda Van Heil, and I got bitten by a cat gator.
And I'm Lauren, and I'm just happy to see Southern representation in the Avatar world.
All right. Yes, we are here today talking about another episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender. But before we get into that, I will say this is the first episode that we're recording. First of all, big behind the curtain, this is the first episode we're recording in a while. We've been very busy. But, you know, this is also the first episode that we're recording after the release of Netflix's live action Avatar: The Last Airbender. So have you guys gotten the chance to see much or any of the show yet?
I've gotten to see the pilot.
So you've seen the pilot? Okay. I mean, I've seen like little videos of it. I haven't watched the series yet, mainly because I want to watch it with Dan, but he hasn't wanted to watch it. And then also having to deal with an infected cat gator bite was kind of annoying.
Yeah, not good.
No.
So you guys are a little off of your perspectives of the show. I, on the other hand, am true to form because I have seen the whole thing.
Of course you have.
How fast did you get through the entire thing? Like, did you just stay up all night and watch 8 hours in a row? Or
No. I think I watched it over the weekend.
Okay.
So it came out on last Thursday, and I honestly didn't get to watch it until I didn't get to start it until Friday night. There were I had intended to watch it as quickly as I could, but as quickly as I could was not as quickly as I thought it would be.
Having seen the whole thing, then what are your, without spoiling anything, but what are your general reaction?
I will say my overall general reaction is the overall general reaction I have been seeing is that there are I think it's a little mixed. I think there are some things that they changed that were good that honestly I really appreciate, and I look forward to talking about some of those with you guys. And then there are some things that I'm like, why did you change that? If you're going to change that, just for example, they bring a lot of things in that don't happen until season 2. There's a lot of obviously we knew there would be a lot of compacting, but there's some compacting from other seasons as well that they have pushed into episodes of this. And some of them I think they handled very well. Some of them I'm like, you didn't need them because you didn't make them special. Why are they here if they don't mean anything?
Yeah.
My general reaction. Sure, go ahead.
Oh, my having just watched the 1 hour is that
right.
I thought it was okay as an adaptation. I liked some of the narrative restructuring they did in the pilot a little bit. I'd heard someone else suggest a while back that for a live act, like it was someone trying to sort of make a pitch for the movie, that the movie should have begun with a flashback like to the air nomads back in the day. That, you know, if that's the time you have to work with, the amount of time you have to work with, that was the better introduction than trying to explain it mid movie.
Right.
But at the same time, and I like some of the acting. I like Sokka. He's good.
I will tell you this. After watching the whole thing, in my opinion, the strongest character out of our leads is Sokka.
No, I can see that already, because honestly, I'm not super impressed by Katara. Again, I've seen 1 hour. She could get better. I'm not judging her entire performance yet. And Aang's just, you know, there.
I will say what I miss from Katara is she lacks the ferocity of Katara.
Yeah.
Whereas with Katara, everything was important. Everything was dire. She was just honestly at times kind of a raw nerve. This version of Katara is never like that. Yeah. And it's like, I miss that.
One thing I didn't like in this adaptation that honestly I felt a little bit, amazingly enough, nostalgic for the movie for was that, and it's a limited thing in the movie, to be honest, is that everything in this show feels like it was shot like on that Mandalorian fake stage or on a soundstage.
I mean, on the volume, I know what you're talking about.
On the volume, exactly.
I don't know if any of it was, or you know, I know that a lot that there was a lot of like you know, location shooting,
but everything feels like, whether or not it was, everything just feels like it was sort of on a CGI background to some extent. Whereas
I will say
the early scenes of the movie, and it's just like that felt spacious. That felt like they were shooting in Iceland or Greenland or whatever it was. And Netflix show didn't do that.
I will say one thing, and I know why they did it, because they were trying to cater to fans, but they're a little too visual specific.
Yes.
They try way too hard to make it look like the cartoon, and a lot of times it doesn't look right because they're trying to make it look too much like the cartoon in live action, and it just bumps.
They've translated a lot of the costumes really literally. Like I don't like Aang running around in orange and yellow. Like I
honestly, I don't mind that. I'm gonna say one thing. Yue's hair.
Oh, I have seen Yue's hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also worth noting, so like the water tribe at the South Pole, they're
I'm sorry, does somebody need to answer a call?
It's a fax machine. It's my dad's fax machine. Sorry. Or line 2 or whatever. But yeah, like the water tribe's costumes, you know, outfits, not costumes. Despite the fact that their living conditions, they're really, really clean. Like all of it, like they don't look lived in. They look like they're wearing cosplay outfits.
I was about to say that's what it looks like. It looks like cosplay, and it does. Everything looks way too clean.
Yeah.
I wish, if you're going to do those things, tone down the colors. You know, they can be the same color, but tone them down, make them look lived in, muddy them up a little bit. And yeah, it does. It looks like a bunch of people running around cosplaying these characters. I will say, though, there are a lot of things in there, though, that I do like. There are some questions that we have asked that are actually answered by the show. And one in specific, when you guys get there, I really want to talk about. But I think we've talked enough for only one of us actually having seen the show.
Sure.
So let's go ahead.
We'll say one last thing just to spoil Amanda on this small detail, which is that at one point in the first episode, Gran literally like recites the opening to the cartoon.
She does.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. But it doesn't take place in the opening.
No.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
No.
So I'm gonna look for it then.
Yeah.
You're not gonna miss it. When it starts happening, you'll be like,
you'll be like, oh, they're doing this now. Yeah. Okay.
You just got to copy the opening and is performing it. Weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so let's go ahead and let us get into the episode today. today we are talking about it is the fourth episode of season or book 2, Earth. It is entitled The Swamp. It was directed by Giancarlo Volpe, written by Tim Hedrick, and it debuted April 14th, 2006. And I will say, Amanda, you and I had pitched that we should guess whether or not Lauren liked this, because I was thinking that this was more of a comedic episode. But as I was watching it, I was like, there's bits of humor, but this is more like kind of like a mysterious like episode. Do we still want to guess whether or not Lauren liked
I'm still
this
gonna
episode?
guess.
Okay.
I'm still
All
gonna
right.
say-
I like this game, so yeah, let's do this.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
gonna say Lauren liked this one.
Okay. You're gonna say Lauren liked this. I'm gonna say specifically, because we do often hit on the humor specifically. So I'm going to say, as a whole, I don't think he minded this episode. I don't think the humor was up his alley.
Okay.
All right. So that's what I'm going to say. So Lauren, where did you land on this episode of The Swamp?
So up front, it's now been a couple of weeks since I watched it, so this is not super fresh in my memory.
Sure.
But I also had no desire to revisit it.
Aw.
And to be fair, yes, the humor did not. What little humor there was did not work for me. That's not why the episode didn't work. I just wasn't engaged in this at all.
Okay. Wow.
This is probably in like my bottom 5 episodes of the show.
Okay. Wow. All right. So already getting down. So technically, Amanda, we were both wrong. I was
Yes.
closer to being right.
Yes,
but we
you
were
were.
both wrong.
You had elements of being right.
Yeah. All right. Elements. I
Yes.
like
Ah!
Which one? Fire, earth, water,
Yes.
air. But yeah, water, obviously. It's
Water.
a swamp. But yeah, so let's go ahead and let's get into this episode. I will say, let's go ahead and let's just knock out the very small side plot with Zuko and Iroh, because it literally just bookends the episode. There are 2 scenes, and there's one at the beginning, one at the end. Because and it's the like I said, it's the very first scene. We see that now Iroh and Zuko are refugees from the Fire Nation living in the Earth Kingdom. They're basically begging. They still have that ostrich horse that they stole.
Yeah, they could sell the ostrich horse.
Right. Or, yeah, I mean, honestly, I still feel bad for Song and her mother. Like,
I do too.
Like, we fed these nice guys and then they stole our horse.
I feel like you're hinting that she's not getting the ostrich horse back in a future episode.
Honestly, like, I didn't remember the ostrich horse being there going forward, so I was like, maybe they just rode on a little bit and then sent it back. But they seem to be playing for keeps.
Yeah.
But yeah,
at some point they won't have it anymore, and our headcanon is just it did a homing pigeon job, like one of those lonely puppies.
Yeah,
it ran away, went home. Yeah. But yeah, right now they still have it, and they are begging on the streets. Of course, Iroh has a way of endearing himself to people. They do encounter one asshole that's like, entertain me and I'll give you a gold piece. And, Iroh, does. He sings.
This song gets stuck in my head on a regular basis.
Sure. The girls from Boss Sing say,
yeah, it's always stuck in my head.
In the city, they look so pretty. The girls from Boss Sing say. I will say the songs from this show, there aren't many, but they do have like an earworm quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guy does, because he just starts singing and the guy like threatens him with his swords and, basically does the sword version of like dance, like with bullets or whatever. But,
yeah,
does the sword version of that. But I will say that Zuko notices that this guy has broadswords, a la the ones he had that he used as the Blue Spirit. And I will also say, and I actually just rewatched. I didn't rewatch the whole thing, but I just rewatched the first little bit of this episode, and and I'm glad I did, because I clocked that at the very beginning of the episode, there's a cart that passes them. If you look at the back of the cart, the Blue Spirit mask is on that cart.
Okay, because I was wondering, like, did he just pack his mask just in case?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was wondering, because I don't know about you guys, but I was thinking, okay, maybe he had the mask, he lost the swords, this guy somehow got the swords, but I honestly just think that he stole the mask from a different mask that looked the same. I think, honestly, that mask is not necessarily unique. So I think he just stole that mask from the cart and just this asshole has broadswords. He's like, I'm gonna put the Blue Spirit back together. I don't think that, these are his items. I think he just, saw similar items that he used to have and decided he was going to put them back together, because now he's a refugee. He might as well be a bandit as well, right?
Makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes more sense than my theory of, so did he just pack it going, you know what, I better take my Blue Spirit mask just in
honestly,
case.
I mean, like I said, before I noticed that Blue Spirit mask on the back, my headcanon was that those were somehow his, and he was stealing back from this guy. I mean, honestly, like I said, there is a scene at the end where he does, confront the guy with the mask and steals the swords. But I don't feel that bad for this dude at all.
No.
He's an asshole. But yeah, so that is that entire subplot. So let us get into the main plot.
I will say, once this phone stops ringing, I wanted to submit just one possible headcanon for why Zuko might take the mask. He doesn't want to leave incriminating evidence behind that he's the Blue Spirit.
That's a good point.
Someone might go through his stuff, And
I mean, I would imagine, I assumed that those things must have gotten destroyed in the bomb that everyone assumed killed him.
Yeah, true.
Oh, that makes sense too.
Yeah. But I mean, either way.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get into the main meat of this, which is the swamp. So, at the beginning, we basically see, Aang and the gang are flying on Appa over this swamp, and Aang starts to go lower without even realizing it. And I will say, they show us a couple of close-up views of the swamp, and I don't know about you guys, but like, this looks kind of like a living organism. Like, it looks like microscopic views of like nerves or whatever. Like,
it looks like it's all like interconnected to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Aang starts to think that maybe they need to go down. Everybody votes him down, and they decide not to. But they get vetoed because a giant swamp tornado comes and basically sucks them down. And Aang, Katara, and Sokka get separated from Appa and Momo. And are they already all separated from each other? No. That doesn't happen till later. But Appa and Momo basically get separated, and they go on their own adventure where Appa keeps trying to fly and take off, but keeps getting stuck in the vines. And then eventually he and Momo get tracked down by a couple of swamp people named Do and Tho, who straight up tell them that they want to eat them. And Appa and Momo decide not to stick around for that.
I don't much blame them.
No. I will say, I do think it's kind of funny, that scene, because he's like, we're not gonna hurt you none, we're just gonna eat you. And then they run off. He's like, why'd you tell them that? He's like, I didn't know they'd understand me. But I will say, I don't know if you guys clocked this, but both of those characters are actually voiced by the same actor, Carlos Alazraki.
Okay.
I think that's pretty close. I mean, he's a pretty prominent voice actor, done a lot of different things. SpongeBob, Family Guy, Archer, bunch of different shows. But yeah, he voices both of those characters. And I mean, I know, Lauren, you said that the humor wasn't necessarily your favorite in this episode. Was it just, I mean, I know it was kind of like, especially, I mean, honestly, the humor mostly comes from these guys.
Yeah.
Is it just kind of like the dumb humor of it all?
It's, I know my joke at the start of it was just I appreciated the Southern representation, but part of it was just
Right.
that the hick attitude of all of it just rubbed me wrong. Yes.
Sure.
Yeah. So honestly, like the joke you just recited, that's a solid joke.
Sure.
You know, the animal, I didn't think the animals would understand me, but
Yeah.
something in the like, you know, subpar delivery of it just I didn't love. Yeah.
Sure. I will say, you know, my favorite joke, I think, in this episode is, you know, Aang has been feeling the entire time that this swamp is like alive and that everything in this swamp must be connected, something like that. But Sokka keeps going through and just hacking, slashing vines and stuff. And Aang keeps telling him, he's like, Sokka, I don't think you should do that. And eventually he's just like, Sokka, I really think it's a bad idea. And Sokka's just like, no, it's okay. I asked the swamp. And he literally like grabs a stick and he was like, yeah, it's okay, Sokka. Like, you know, obviously it's just some silly humor. But again, Sokka, you know, bringing the humor home for us. But I mean, Amanda, did you have any thoughts about the humor, kind of the Southern characters in this episode?
You know, I just think it's funny. Like, yeah, it's I'm just laughing at myself watching it, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I will say, you know, obviously there's some differences, but this kind of humor, it honestly kind of reminds me of, like, honestly, Lauren, it reminds me of some Ernest stuff.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think, though, like, the swamp benders are actually very capable and oddly intelligent. They just don't portray it. And I think that's what I like about it. Is like, they're not stupid.
I was about to say, they are simply people from a different culture. And honestly, Amanda, I'm glad that you brought up the fact that these are waterbenders.
That was the most interesting thing I thought about the episode, honestly. That we found waterbenders outside the poles, which to me makes an imminent amount of sense.
Well, see, I personally am convinced that Gran had a fling with one of them.
On Gran's Grand Adventure?
Yes, during Gran's Grand Adventure. Because when they do meet, I'm skipping ahead, but when they do meet Katara, he's like, well, we must be kin. And she's like,
we cousins. Yeah, so, I love Katara's face in that. She's just
there could have been a swamp bender that Gran hooked up with, and that was actually their grandpa.
Oh, I'm sure it was like Hugh's dad or something like that, you know?
Yeah. But no, I like just seeing waterbenders in an environment where the water is naturally, you know, liquid, as opposed to like making their habitat in the place where the thing they manipulate is ice.
Well, what I think is interesting is, you know, obviously Katara did not know about the waterbenders here, but they seem to be surprised that there were other waterbenders elsewhere.
Yeah.
So
I kind of like the mythology that this builds up, the little about a world building, because it's a large, expansive world. They don't have like modern communication. People are sometimes isolated. They don't know what's happening in the other corners.
Yeah, well, and
honestly,
you know,
I wouldn't blame them for not wanting to leave, because I wouldn't want to go to an ice place when I've got the nice warm place where I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when they ask Katara about where she lives, you know, they're like, "Oh, a lot of water there," and she goes, "No, mostly snow," and they're just like, "No, I'm good. I'm good in the swamp."
Yeah,
They're
I'm
like,
with the
why would
swamp
you
people
want to live there? And of course, Katara's like, why would you want to live here? So yeah, obviously, different personalities, different perspectives, but yeah, it's interesting. But another thing that's going on here is that as we mentioned, this place seems to be alive, and it also seems to be very spiritual, because at a certain point, our three leads get separated. you know Aang, Katara, Sokka, they all end up going a little bit on their own journey. Katara, uh, while she's trying to find the other two, sees this woman ahead of her, and eventually uh, believes that this woman is her mother, and never sees her face, but gets close enough to feel like this is her mother, gets all the way up to her, and then touches her, and she's just a formation of trees. Like she's not like a full tree or anything. Like it's just kind of this tall stump coming out of the swamp. But obviously this upsets Katara, because obviously we know she has some strong feelings about the loss of her mom. And then we see Sokka has a vision of Yue. And this is really the first time that we're really seeing kind of the guilt over what happened to Yue, how it has played on Sokka. Because, we know obviously he wasn't happy about losing her, in the North Pole, but we've never really seen his guilt. He's never really talked about the guilt that he felt over it, and how he felt like he failed her or anything like that. But we're really kind of seeing it play out in this, because his vision of her basically accuses him, which we know obviously Yue is not blaming Sokka. Yue made her own decisions, but we are obviously seeing the way that Sokka feels about it.
According to the wiki, this is the first episode of the entire series we've gotten any glimpse of Sokka and Katara's mom.
Yes, I do believe that is true.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we still don't see her face, but just in any appearance of her on screen at all. Yeah.
Right. And then Aang, though differently from the other two, they're seeing visions of the past, things, people that they've lost, regrets that they have, things like that. Aang is actually seeing someone he's never met before. He is seeing a young girl, very nicely dressed, with a flying boar. And I will say, no spoilers, but this is going to be very important. I will say I do find it interesting the way that she is dressed, because it's an interesting choice of depiction here. But
this is when I was looking at the wiki, I saw when I was looking at the voices when you were pronouncing Carlos's name, I saw so and so playing this character. It's like y'all have mentioned this character. I don't remember her being in this episode. Where did her first appearance was? It says like in Vision. It's like, all right, I guess that's the case then.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at this point, just a vision, and Aang starts chasing this laughing girl through the swamp. And I will say, I love how when he tells it to Katara, it sounds just as ridiculous as it is. He's just like, I saw some laughing girl and I started chasing her through the swamp. And they're just
I feel like that is the most accurate depiction of any of their visions, though, of who they saw.
Yeah. But yeah, so eventually they all come back together, and they are confronted by giant swamp kaiju. I will say this show likes its kaijus.
Yep.
Because now they are having to battle this giant swamp kaiju made out of vines, and I will say this battle sequence is rather interesting because they're trying everything that they can, but it's just a giant thing made out of vines. No matter what they do, it just keeps bringing in more vines and coming after them. They start chopping it up and all this kind of stuff. Eventually, though, I think Katara and Aang work together to kind of like cut through it, and they realize that there is someone in there bending the vines. And eventually they are able to kind of dismantle this giant creature and get to the tiny human center of it. And they meet this guy, Hugh, which I don't know about you guys, but Hugh to me seems like a tiny, sweatier, fleshier version of the Lorax.
I'm Hugh. I speak for the swamp. For the swamp has no voice. It's just got like vines and water and possum chicken.
Swamp hippies.
Possum chicken.
I was just sitting here thinking how you described it as a kaiju at first, and then like you rip it apart as a person. It's like, you thought it was a kaiju. It's actually a plant mech the entire time.
See, I was thinking he's like one of those like Russian nesting dolls.
If we cut open
it apart and down in the bottom, there's this tiny little man.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, honestly, my first thought was like he's like the Tootsie Roll center of the Tootsie Pop.
I like that.
He's like a little alien in Men in Black, in the guy's head.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's funny is the first time I saw this and I found out that he was bending the water in the plants to make them move. First thing popped into my head is like, well, the body is primarily water. So what's stop like water benders from like using the water in a human body and bending them? And that's all I'm going to say to that.
Right. Yeah, I will say this episode opens up a lot of possibility with waterbenders because, this is one of the first times that we have seen someone bending the water within something. And, he is, bending the vines, but he's doing it because he's bending the water within them. So yeah, it's a very interesting, new aspect of water that we are water bending that we are setting up here. But basically
they wouldn't have had that like at either of the poles. So that's
no. I mean,
advantage to hanging out at the poles where your powers are less useful.
But yeah, so Hugh basically tells them that he the way they made it sound, it was almost like he came from somewhere else and then like just really felt connected to the swamp and decided to stay. Like I almost imagine him as like some sort of like professor from some big city that like came upon the swamp and is just like, I'm going to be a swamp man from now on.
You think he was a professor and he was just on a 3-hour tour and he just got stranded in this swamp, with the
that makes sense. I mean, it is that swamp tornado.
Yeah, with the skipper and Marianne. But yeah, so I mean, do and Tho, which one's the skipper, which one's Gilligan?
One of them definitely Gilligan.
I mean, yeah, the tall guy that keeps telling animals he's gonna eat them. That's Gilligan.
That's Gilligan.
Absolutely. And
Gilligan's swamp.
Here, I was about to say here in Hughes Swamp.
Yes.
Or I guess technically it'd be, I don't know which one's Do and which one's Tho, but Tho Swamp. Whatever it is. But yeah. I forgot what I was saying. But anyway, yeah, he's telling them that everything is connected and things like that. And when Aang hears that, that's how he's like, well, let's check that out, because at this point they still haven't found Appa and Momo yet. he connects with the big banyan tree in the center and is able to track down Appa and Momo and save them from Do and Tho, who are still trying to eat them. But when they come upon them, they realize that Do, Tho, and Hugh, they all know each other. So, these guys are just hungry. Honestly, Sokka can relate because Sokka's already tried to eat Momo. Surely he understands where these guys are coming from.
I mean, you see this great big bison. I mean, people eat buffalo, people eat cow.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, I get it.
Dude, that's
Obviously,
dinner.
because we know Appa, we're like, no.
No.
But I get where these guys are coming from. I mean, Appa's large. They would be eating for quite a while. I get that.
Eating Appa makes perfect sense. Eating Momo seems like a waste of energy. It's like hunting squirrels, but
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, Momo's not the prize.
Yeah.
Momo at one point flies off. They catch him in a bag. They keep going after Appa.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will say we are also seeing these glimpses of things that look like a mix between alligators and catfish. Which Amanda, you called them cat gators at the
They're called
beginning.
cat gators.
Is
I had
that
to look
really
it
what
up.
they're called?
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say I didn't know if they were like catfish gator, because I mean cat gator doesn't really, because they're not mixes of cats, they are catfish, but it's fine.
Yeah. That's just what they're called. They're called
Yeah.
cat gators.
Yeah, but
they look more like catfish. Yeah.
I will say Sokka's like, why are you chasing Appa? Why don't you just eat these guys? And apparently they're like, no, these are like our dogs. So I'm just like, all right. And do you remember what was it? Bubba? Was that the name of the thing? Oh no, it was like Slim or
I
something.
think it was Slim. Let me see.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up.
It's Slim in the wiki. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
It's
like, I
Slim
can't
in
eat
the-
Slim. He's like family.
So he's their Appa.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
it specifically says Slim is the name of one of the creators' two dogs.
oh, okay. So it was named after one of the creator's dogs. Well,
Yep.
there you go. But yeah, I will say the other notable thing is that they, at the end, they're just like, the one question we still have is, to Hugh is, how did you conjure that, swamp tornado that brought us down? And he's like, I can't do anything like that. And they're left with the question, because Sokka ultimately absolutely refuses to believe that there is anything mystical about this place, that there's anything spiritually related, even though it, Yue almost literally like slapped him in the face. Sokka refuses to believe it. But my question is, do you guys think that was just the swamp wanting Aang to land, or do you think that maybe there was someone else that brought them down?
I think it was just the swamp is a spiritual place where everything's interconnected, since that's like a big theme in it. I don't think there was a particular person there.
Sure. Lauren, did you have any thoughts? Huh? You think it was Slim? Well, he is a powerful waterbender. Is that they're Slim?
Can animals be benders? Does that ever get established?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, they've already said that the first earthbenders learned earthbending from badger moles.
Oh, that's true. They did say that.
And the sky bisons are who they learned airbending from.
Right.
Is the what?
Yeah. Sky bisons taught the airbenders.
Honestly, Appa seems like a better example of that, honestly.
Yeah.
The badger moles were presented as being such large, unusual, intelligent things. Like they seem of a different piece than other animals. But you're obviously right.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, is there anything else about this episode that you guys wanted to discuss?
Oh, that bird that screams at the very end.
Sure. Well, I mean, that is Appa, or Sokka basically being like, the swamp's not alive. nothing crazy was happening here. And then that screaming bird, and then the swamp literally moves like a vine or piece of a tree and slaps the bird. It's like, Sokka, I love you, buddy, but sometimes you're an idiot.
He's just very logical.
And refuses to let go of it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, if there is nothing else that we want to discuss, let us go ahead and let us get into our My Cabbages moment.
My cabbages!
Which is, of course, the moment in the episode where we talk about our favorite or most interesting, scene. So, yeah, we're all a little hiccupy or something. So, Amanda, I'm going to let you start us off. What was your My Cabbages moment?
When Katara tells the swamp bender she's a waterbender, and then he's like, "Oh, we must be cousins."
We must
And
be
then-
kin.
We
And the
must be
way
kin,
she
that's right.
reacts,
We must be kin,
is
and just the look
great.
on Katara's face,
she's
like, no.
"Ugh,
And that just
uh-uh."
solidifies my theory that Gran had a grand adventure with the swamp bender, and there's a swamp bender who was Katara's grandpa. Maybe
Yeah.
he went back down to the South Pole with her, or maybe it was just an illegitimate child, and then she met somebody down at the South Pole and then settled down with him. But regardless,
See,
Grandma
I'm
had
still,
a good time in the swamp.
I'm still holding on to the idea that she's actually related to Boomy.
That is possible too.
Yeah. All right, Lauren.
It's not so much a specific scene, but just the general reveal of a non, ice centric water tribe. I've thought all along, it's like, why aren't there waterbenders in places where the water is liquid, like beaches
Yeah.
or oceans or islands or something?
Yeah.
And a swamp is a good place for that. So,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, I like the world building that added to the series.
Well, and it also opens up the idea that, there are going to be people that aren't necessarily hewing to the ideas of the nations,
Exactly.
these divisions that they've created are really artificial.
Yes.
So the fact that there could be water tribe people that live outside of the water tribe, there could be, or water benders that live outside of the water tribe. There might even still be air nomads that had
what I was about to
nothing
say,
to do with
there
the
are still
temples.
a bunch of air nomads hanging out somewhere, just not
Yeah.
advertising themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say, I think ultimately my favorite scene was the fight with the giant swamp kaiju, and then ultimately the reveal of the tiny human sensor in this giant grass lollipop. Let us now get then into our Mako Award. This is the award that we give to our favorite or most interesting character of the episode. So Lauren, why don't you start us off? Who gets your Mako Award?
I suppose kind of by default, I'm just going to give it to Sokka.
Okay.
Just because, at the end, I'm not entirely certain he was right. But
I mean, he's pretty well proven wrong, but yeah.
But there's not much I can do about that.
I know.
I think it's fine. I think it's done. But no, at least from his point of view, as he's going through the episode, I think his skepticism is justified. That because after all, he doesn't think the kaiju and what they're seeing from the swamp is mystical, and he's right. It turns out to just be other waterbenders. Like there was in their world a more rational explanation for that. And yeah, he had a vision of someone he knew, but people hallucinate stuff like that. again, it's not an unreasonable thing to think like he's just gotten exposed to some kind of hallucinogenic drug in the in the swamp that's causing him to see that.
Sure.
Really, the one thing that more solidifies that there is something more mystical going on isn't anything Sokka experiences; it's Aang's vision, because
Right.
Aang is seeing something he's getting a
He
foreshadowing of.
hasn't experienced.
He's
Yeah.
getting a prophetic vision as opposed to
Right.
just a vision of his past. But Sokka didn't know that.
Right.
So, but yeah, Sokka.
All right. Amanda.
Oh, I'm giving it to all 3 swamp benders because I
Okay.
like them. They make me so happy. I don't know why. I just like them.
All right. Well, I am actually giving mine specifically to Hugh, because I don't know if you guys noticed or not. I really like that guy's voice. It was voiced by William Bassett, who has also been a pretty prolific voice actor. Yeah, and he just was this easygoing kind of spiritual swamp hippie, and I really do like the headcanon that this guy was like a well-off professor that just decided to abandon his entire life and live in the swamp. So yeah, I'm giving mine to Hugh, the human center of a grass lollipop. Yeah. So now it is time then to rate the episode on the Avatar State Meter. We can rate this anywhere from 1 to 5, 5 being the show at full power. 1 could deal it a fatal blow. So Amanda, where would you rate this episode?
I'd give this one a solid 4. It's one that I tend to go back to pretty frequently just because I like the swamp.
All right. Well, there you go. Lauren, we already know it's not going to rate very high, but where do you put it?
Maybe if I rewatched it, I would have a slightly different evaluation, but
Sure.
I really don't want to rewatch it. So yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and that might actually be the lowest grade I've given you. Think it's not the worst episode that I've seen.
I don't think it's the lowest. Well, I know you've given at least one other episode or 2.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, as the show goes on, I have to figure out how the scale should properly work. But yeah, for me at least, this is definitely on the lower end. It's Amanda can go back. Amanda can have all the reviewings that I'm not used to.
You give her your share, huh?
Yes, exactly.
All right.
More for me.
Yes.
Sure. I will say, I think, number one, I actually do enjoy this episode, but also it's, and obviously we know this a little better than you do, Lauren, because we have seen the show, but it's actually, kind of important. It sets up some things that are coming up.
Oh, I imagine that. Like I said,
yeah.
I like world building, and I fully expect that the stuff that's set up here is going to pay off later.
Sure.
Even if I didn't realize the foreshadowing of Toph at the time. Really,
you said the name, Lauren.
Yes, for all the people
we had an unspoken agreement to not say the name, and you said it.
Yep. I didn't say which person with that name. I don't know how many people there are.
Yeah, because super common name. It could be in the Earth Kingdom. Who knows? Who knows?
There's probably more than one Boomy. Yeah. Yeah. But no. I think at the end of the day, something about depicting our new water tribe, comrades here as basically Cletus the slack-jawed yokel, just.
Sure.
Wasn't the interpretation that did it for me.
But again, they're living in a swamp.
Yep.
So, do you expect them to come across like Thurston Howell III? That would be, to continue our Gilligan's Island analogy, I think that would have made less sense.
Yeah, I don't immediately have what interpretation I would have. I just didn't like the one they chose.
Lovely. Let's bend these vines.
It would be funny if they came across like sophisticates in the middle of the swamp.
That would be really funny.
Oh, I honestly, I still haven't given my rating. What feels right is 3.5. So like I said, I do enjoy this episode. It's not my favorite, but I do enjoy it, and I do think that it's important to what is coming up. But yeah, that is that, and I will say we already know this is not Lauren's new favorite show with a 2. But we're gonna keep working on him. But let us go ahead. It is time to go ahead and let people know how they can get in contact with us. So you can, of course, contact me at the Flying Cow Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can also email at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. Make sure to check out everything else we have going on. We're doing a lot of fun stuff, so make sure to check us out. Also, patreon.com/theflyingcow. Really appreciate all of your support. Remember, like, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Comment on videos. I read them and I like pretty much all of them. So, interact with us. Lauren, Amanda, tell us what you got going on.
You can find me on Twitter at Lauren Collins. If you're in the Atlanta area, come out to Act 3 Theater in Sandy Springs between March 15th and 30th. I'm in Lend Me a Tenor.
And if you go, bring him a hiccup cure.
Yes, exactly. And incidentally, the reason I have part of the reason I have the hiccups, I had minor outpatient procedure yesterday.
Oh no.
Geez.
Yeah, and I think the anesthesia did something to like my kidney or whatever. It was a kidney procedure. That now when I lay funny, I think it's triggering something inside of me to act up. And
did they sew your kidney to your diaphragm?
I mean, I asked them to, but I'm not able to check to see if they did that.
Gotcha.
Charged me for it, which is frustrating.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't know.
No, but what they did, they blasted kidney stones. They knocked me out, and
fun.
like a sonic cannon, just pounded the kidney stones into dust. Hopefully.
Yeah. That sounds like something you need to be asleep for. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I would not want to be away for that.
The doctor did describe it as like getting punched in the gut by Mike Tyson 1,000 times.
What?
Awesome. All right, Amanda, anything?
You can find me on socials at Amanda Van Heil. You can find me on Twitch at Panda Princessa.
All right, and we will be back next time covering the episode Avatar Day. But until that time, moo.
Mm.